you're you're spending however long, an hour or whatever the show is, kind of like belting so much out that it's like emotionally exhausting.
There's a false notion in our society. I'll take care of you if you take care of me. But the truth is, if we actually take care of ourselves first, only then can we change our life, change our homes, change our cities, our relationships, and eventually change the world. For those of you who appreciate the holistic lifestyle, you've come to the right place. Your host, Emanuel Tim, is a certified emotion and body code practitioner and certified group energy facilitator. You are now listening to Healing the Healer podcast.
This show is brought to you by Heal, the social media platform for those who love the holistic lifestyle. Are you tired of sharing holistic tips and getting banned or going to Facebook jail for sharing the truth? Are you tired of all the Facebook political drama? Tired of people who don't support energy healing growth? My wife Jess and I created a social media platform that was meant for people who love social media, communicating with like-minded people, and love learning hacks from other wellness practitioners. It's free to join. www.haveempathyandlove.com. Plus, every week you have the option and choice to opt into a cutting-edge healing group where you get energy healing for 7 days straight. Again, it's free to join. www.haveempathyandlove.com. I have a really special guest today, Tim Kasher here. And for those of you who don't know him, and it's just wrong if you don't, but he's from Omaha, Nebraska. He's in Cursive, and he has another project called The Good Life. He recently released an album called Middling Age, which is his 4th album. And he's actually made 20 studio LPs since 1994. Is that right?
I suppose, yeah. I know it's somewhere up there, yeah.
Yeah, and so I also was looking you up. I was like, okay, he plays vocals, accordion, guitar. I put ugly organ, keyboard, vuvuzela, which I wish he could play today, bass. And yeah, just welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. I think that whatever that vuvuzela is, I think that's somebody wonking with the Wikipedia.
Okay.
I think I've seen that before too, and I've been asked that before. I don't even know what it looks like.
I'm a musician myself, and I was just so sad. I was like, what is vuvuzela? I'm like, okay, it's one of those cool little trumpet-looking things back in the medieval times. But anyway, I just want to first of all just welcome you to the show. One of the things is I don't know if you follow up with like Joyner Lucas or Will Smith at all. Do you follow up with those are rappers? I don't know if you.
I was gonna say there's so many Will Smiths in the right now. So
yeah,
like there's Will Smith, the ball player, baseball player.
Yeah. So
there's of course the Will Smith. I think we'd all like to consider the Miami Will Smith is like the.
Yeah.
But then I just ran into another one. So you're talking about Will Smith?
Will Smith, like Fresh Prince.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, but Joyner Lucas did something. He was a rapper, and he did something like where he's like he did a song like a tribute to him, where he was just like, you got to give a rose to someone before they pass away, or give a rose to someone for like, just thank you for all that you've done, you know? So for me, this is like a podcast, like giving a rose to you. Cause yeah, basically I'll tell you what happened. A little story just real quick. So I was in military school, and once I graduated, I went to Musicians Institute over in Hollywood, and I was going there, and they told me they forced me to study music business. And then a girl from school invited me to go see The Bled. I don't know if you know that band, The Bled, but it was a pretty really heavy, thrashy band. But around that same time, either it was that night or the night right afterwards, she invited me to another show, and that was the first time you showed up there, and you were like, you played the Some Red-Handed Sleight of Hand, like that was like the opening song, and then I was just like, what band is this? You know, and I was like playing music at that time, you know, and I just remember going like, that was like the greatest opening song for a show. And then I just remembered saying like I want to continue playing music. What am I doing in music business class, you know, in Musicians Institute, you know? So, but yeah, so I just wanted to say like that album just totally rocked my world. I think it was up there with like Mars Volta, D. Louse and the Comatorium, which is like one of my other favorite bands of all time. So I just want to say thank you it was like, again, a very amazing, inspired work in my opinion, you know, so.
Mars Volta they've announced like they're doing shows again, and maybe have a new album too.
Yeah, they released a single, like I think just recently. I saw it on Cedric's Instagram, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of share that with you. There's the rose there,
Cool.
but yeah.
Thanks.
So first of all, just how are you? Like what's going on over there in the Tim world right now? What are you up to nowadays?
I'm great. I have I'm had I feel like it's a little bit more of a relaxed season for me. I did a lot of touring through the first part of the year. Um, so this is a great time of year for me. I'm just working on music and actually even kind of going through. I have tons of old cassette tapes everywhere right now that I'm going through. Trying to I don't know, man. There's just so much stuff over basically just stuff from like the 90s, I guess, when I was still using 4 tracks, but finding unearthing music that I haven't heard for the last 20 years. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, so like music you've never like fully put it out there, and you're just kind of reviewing the tapes.
Yeah, so I'm going through. I'm kind of scouring through them and trying to find stuff that has been lost,
Yeah.
and then transferring it to Pro Tools so I can kind of get it digitally and have a better way to kind of preserve it, I guess.
Yeah, I remember doing the recording in those little that blue big board and like putting it in there, and then like if you play it long enough in there or record stuff over it, the tape just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But I just remember that like sometimes this organic feel from the tape was just amazing, and then like, can I replicate what I just did on that tape? Even I don't care if it's Pro Tools, just like there's something raw about that tape that you're kind of like nervous if you can replicate it.
So I'm starting a part of this as well is starting a project where I'm going to start recording stuff on 4-track, just as like a tangent amongst other things. And I'm excited about it. But the thing is that I know that I'm ultimately still going to be transferring it over to Pro Tools and so like onto my laptop. And so I think I have to like set parameters for that. My parameters are, I think it's okay to switch it into Pro Tools and apply like, just certain filters and gates just to make it sound better, like say reverb and or more importantly compression. But I think that I'm going to have a rule that I can't tamper or edit it, because I think that's kind of part of the beauty of what 4-track recording is.
Right.
Is we aren't able to kind of go into like the nanoseconds and like splice
right
everything, and so
right.
Like the way I do, a lot of people don't realize this, like the way I do, I'm gonna just go off on boring tangents now.
No, please
like
go ahead.
To do like a vocal take, I'll generally do 3 to 5 takes.
Yeah.
And then I go through and I edit them all together.
Right.
That's not the way you do it with a 4-track.
No.
And I want it, so I kind of want to, if I'm going to record stuff on a 4-track, I feel like I should be maintaining some level of integrity of what the 4-track actually was and what it's capable of,
right,
or what it's not capable of, I guess.
And what's interesting too is like some of our favorite, I guess, like iconic songs that we appreciate, like the Beatles, for example, they were using the simple tracks, or simple tracks like the Doors. It's like you got what they played that day, and if they sounded great, that's what it was. But it was memorable. I mean, we still play it now and we still love the recording. So
that's something that I think I imagine a lot of non-musicians may not think about, is that prior to, there's been a lot of technological revolutions going on, and in the music industry, it's certainly been massively affected by it in mostly positive ways. But prior to us all having our own recording setups in our own homes, you had to be really good. You had to be like, so
really
when
good.
So basically anything from like, 1995 and under, I'll say, is just like some kind of like, maybe like maybe the year 2000 or something. Anything under that, before that, that's people actually recording onto tape for the most part and just getting great takes because they're good at what they do.
Right. Yeah, and I just watched the Elvis movie recently. I don't know if you got to check it out. I don't know if you're kind of like anti-Elvis or you're.
Yeah. I like Baz Luhrmann. He's crazy.
Yeah. So it was really good. I liked it, and but I guess I was reading up on Elvis too, and it was saying that he was kind of like a 80, 90, sometimes take guy. Like it was just kind of like, it was not good enough, or I need to do it again, you know? And
Really?
yeah. And that sounds like insane, but it sounds like he was a perfectionist, like too much almost, you know?
Huh. That's so interesting. So fascinating to hear. He's, some like one of the most iconic voices.
Oh yeah.
In recording history.
Yeah, I was shocked too. I thought but again, what we think might be like that's the best vocals ever. Something in his head says it just a little bit flat here or whatever. It's like no auto tune there.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But so I'm gonna kind of go into So when I go to Cursive, I noticed that if you go to Spotify, I don't know if you like check yourself out or you're just like, okay, I'm just not gonna like look at how people are responding. I'm just gonna just play music, But when I go to Cursive, the Ugly Organ's like on the top 5. Like there's like 2 or 3, like 3 or 4 songs from the Ugly Organ that's still on like the top 5 of Cursive. So when you see that, so I was thinking like, has it for you? Is it sort of like when Nirvana loved, like he used to play Nevermind and that's all they wanted him to play? Are you in that set where you're just like, I just want to try stuff that's new and I want people to just really appreciate this new place where I'm at? Because I kind of feel like when I'm listening to your music, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like, for example, like Linkin Park, is like a really tough band, and as they go along, it seems like they got kind of like lighter. Like it's almost like Chester finally got happy. Like he's not so mad anymore, It's almost like he got all his angst out and now he's just kind of like he wants to play in a forest now, So I'm wondering if you're in that phase where, because when I heard Middling Age, it's just got that great guitar riff and it's got these amazing jazz chords in there. And I'm just like, this is a really calm, relaxing, like going down in a boat down a river kind of music. I don't know if that's that's the phase that you're in,
Well, I've kind of tried to kind of maintain these multiple phases throughout the last 25 years or whatever. So I mean, that's a good representation of what Middling Age is. And I love that style of music, but I've also been doing that since the 90s as well. But it was just kind of represented more like through the Good Life and then through solo albums as well. Cursive though has gone through different incarnations, although they might be more subtle to maybe it needs more of an astute observer, a listener to like kind of recognize it. But the records do kind of go through different eras, at least to our ears. But I don't know, like the last 2 records Cursive did in I guess it was 2018 and 2019, I think. Are rock records.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of a record right now that's it's like heavy, I guess, but I don't know if like saying it's heavy is just like such a generalization.
Sure.
It's just we play loud like we always have, and but there's quieter stuff too, like we've always had,
Right.
I like to try to we've always wanted our albums to be eclectic. We try to avoid like too much of like a homogeneous sound.
Right.
As I feel like that can tend to just blur, like an album will like become blurry in your, I like for each song to be able to stick out if possible.
Right. Yeah. And who's so I wanted to kind of hopefully you don't mind, but like I feel like I probably watched maybe a few dozen interviews, and you know how it is, like people always ask you questions about your tour and just the typical things like, hey, so you're coming out and your record label, or just the different things like that. But I feel like there's not a lot of, in my opinion, like attention to like your lyrics. Like your lyrics are, I sometimes check YouTube and people are really commenting on like how powerful your lyrics are, and for me, it's like, that's a really big deal. Like it's cause I wrote haikus since I was maybe like 3 years old or something. Probably I picked up a crayon, started writing a haiku about a hummingbird that passed away or something. But I love poetry, and I was in a band for a little bit. I love music, and I just think like lyrics are so important. Like it grabs your heart, and the music kind of adds an ambiance to it, but it's like the lyrics should be just grabbing your heart, telling you like, do you relate to this or do you not relate to this, kind of thing. And so I was just wondering if maybe I could just fly through some questions about my favorite album that you've had, which is, for me, it's The Ugly Organ. That's my favorite one. And I call it the gateway album, kind of like gateway drug. Like if someone were to check out Cursive, I always tell them, like, you want to listen to Cursive, listen to The Ugly Organ. Then it kind of opens to different levels of where he's at in music. But yeah, if you don't mind, I'd love to just ask you just some random questions about that album, because I know,
Absolutely.
and so first of all, something that I noticed in The Ugly Organ, like the lyrics, the first part, I grew up, my past, I know I saw in an interview that you grew up kind of Catholic, or I guess maybe your parents were Catholic, but I was just wondering, like, how much did that sort of doctrine sort of like influence your words? Because I know, like, even in the Sleight of Hand song, it says, "Our Father who art in heaven." I mean, that's just flat out like the Our Father that they always pray about, So I'm always, and then, past the pat around, that's, like putting your little tithing in there. I mean, it's just a lot of like kind of moments of where there's like Catholicism thing from there. But do you feel like that kind of influenced you a lot on that album? Like you just wanted to say, okay, this is how I grew up, so I'm just going to kind of throw it in there. But is there like a reason for it? Is it like, are you sharing that because of like maybe you're against it, or like I don't know. I just wanted to see like what your intent was,
It's such a So I grew up in a Catholic family, and went to 12 years of 8 years of a Catholic school, and then 4 years of high school at like a all boys Jesuit school. So it's a lot of that's a lot of indoctrination, and it's totally, absolutely been cemented in my mind, and it's completely informed who I am. That being said, I'm atheist, but that doesn't mean that I don't carry all of that with me. And it's all like so. It's also like deeply ingrained into like the fiber of who I am, and in many ways, I'd say in a positive way. I think there's a lot of benefits to the messaging of a Catholic school, of like religious classes, I guess. There's certain benefits in there. I think there's also a lot of problems with it.
Right.
Too. I have a lot of problems with organized religion. But yeah, I think that I just throughout my life, when I get into writing, I kind of can't help but like, all my reference points are like biblical.
Right.
And so it's just kind of it shaped who I am so much that it shaped my music so much. And it all kind of seems natural to me that would happen. But also, I'm not just somebody who grew up Catholic, then became like lapsed Catholic, or just doesn't care.
Yeah.
I take it like really seriously, and it's something that I think I sometimes like to take a minute to just explain that to people, because there is a tendency for people to assume like, oh, well, if you're atheist, that just means you don't give a shit about religion. It's like, well, actually, I give so much of it. I care so much about religion that I'm basically spending my life thinking about religion. And
it sounds like you're almost reflecting on it over and over again. Like it keeps coming up in different songs, and it's kind of like you're poking at it, but it's not in a really negative way. You're just kind of just poking at it and just seeing what's there. I noticed that.
Yeah, and I'm definitely negative at times, because I think I feel the need to. I'm trying to get I think I want to get a message across that I want people to question their religion.
Sure.
I don't want people to like lose their religion if it's like their guiding, if that's like their
compass,
or their guiding light, I guess, or for lack of a better term. But I do want them to question. I do want them to question it, because I think that they should question I think they should question organized religion. But so yeah, so I need to be negative about it at times, but more often than not, I try, especially as I've gotten older, I try to be a little bit more level-handed about it, because I want atheism to be taken seriously, and because I think it's potentially a really positive, and can even be faith-based. I mean, like it's like I think people just kind of get something like atheism. It's just like, well, it's the denial of all religion, so it's just kind of like it's it's just reduced to just nothing, or just like paganism or something like that. It's just like, well, it really doesn't have to be that at all. I think that to be forced to believe in yourself and to believe in humanity versus just kind of having this like fallback crutch of like, oh, I don't know, God, I'm in God's hands, or God will take care of me, or anything like that, you know. And again, I don't mean to be too discouraging about it, because I know I do respect that that's how people feel, but hey, I need them to respect how I feel too. You know? Which is, it's like, it's, sometimes I do feel like atheists have to like, I mean, think about it. They have to stay in the closet. If you're atheist, if you're, in politics, if you're an atheist, it doesn't look good,
Right.
If you're a leader and you're, it's like, you can't, I mean, it's just being the leaders of humanity. People don't trust atheists. And I think that's kind of a load of crap. So anyway, what I'm trying to say, I like to try to stay positive about it.
Yeah.
And because I think that so much of atheism is, so many atheists out there tend to be pretty negative. And again, I think it's because it's like we feel the need to be, because I think atheists feel attacked, you know?
Yeah.
And so you kind of want to fight back. But I think it's better to have a positive message. And so I try, but it's like it's I'm pretty angry about a lot of things too.
It's almost like you're an atheist apologetic, like they tend to defend, or just kind of like, I really feel like there is everyone should respect everyone's beliefs. It's like, that's whatever floats your boat. My thing I always tell with religion, I feel like a lot of people give it crap because there's always that 10% that's really sort of very judgmental and overly dogmatic, and then those 10% are like the loudest people in that religion. And then most of the people in the church don't even like that 10%, for the most part. And so we only hear from those. And so then you judge the whole religion based on that 10%, but the 90% were like, we wouldn't even have them over for dinner. Like, they're just like, woo, So, but yeah, those are my thoughts. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And I know like Ricky Gervais is, I know I've seen some of his interviews, and he talks about sort of the difference between agnosticism and like atheism. It's always interesting how there still needs to be clarification nowadays. And I think Christians are just way too quick to judge and just say like, well, if you're not Christian, then, go to that fiery place. It's like, I think that's not really, that's very being judgmental on your side, in my opinion. Yeah.
And you're reminding me again, and like how I like to suggest to people that it's like that I am religious. I mean, by choosing atheism, it's like I am choosing a religion in a sense, or because I have no interest in agnosticism. I have no interest in people who will sometimes attack atheism as like, oh, how can you be atheist? You don't know. You can't possibly know. Agnosticism is like clearly the most informed decision we can make. Based on the fact that we have no information, right? But that's my response to that is like, okay, tell a Christian to be agnostic, right? I mean, it's just like, why are you telling an atheist to be agnostic? Tell a Christian to be agnostic. Like a Christian, and then a Christian will, of course, will respond and say, well, no, I believe there's a God. Of course I'm not agnostic. It's like, well, I have beliefs too. I have a belief system. I believe there's no God. Why would I be agnostic? Like, I'm making it. I don't want to sit on that fence.
Right. That makes perfect sense. I mean, and like I said, I really feel that I think this world would be a way better place if everyone just sort of respected everyone else's beliefs and just didn't make quick judgments on it, And like I said, everyone's we're all breathing the same air. I love that typical meme that we always see where it's just like, if you were to strip us of our skin, you would just see the same muscles and skeleton. I mean, we're all really technically the same, and it's just like I need to make a podcast about how we have such a versus mentality here, and it's really hurt our level of peace in this life. It's red versus blue, black versus white, this religion versus non-religion. I mean, it's just like the polarities are like the struggle of our human peace, in my opinion.
Yeah, the worst in this country right now is red and blue. It's just totally insane. And it's just, and we're just all, whatever. That seems like a whole other conversation. But it's just tactical. You know, we're like absolutely pawns being like ripped asunder, torn asunder by by politics and by social media and by media in general, to be like repelled
Mm-hmm.
by each other, you know?
Yeah, I'm always, like I said, I think everyone should just listen to a Cursive album or The Middling Age, and then just, just chill a little bit, just like, take a little
Yeah.
tea and just, herbal tea and just hang out.
That's a great idea.
But yeah, so here's another question I had for you. So do you find music like basically like a form of like a cathartic process to like eliminate emotions like unexpressed? Like I know you like studied philosophy, right? Did you study philosophy in
I did. I mean, it's so long ago.
Yeah.
I have a minor in philosophy, but
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious, like, when did you realize, like, because I remember there was this time where I was playing a song one time, and it was in military school, and I was just playing and just kind of rocking out, and then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if you ever get that really high pitched sound in your ear, where all of a sudden it just comes in really loud and then just kind of goes away. But that's what happened after I played this song, but I felt this really amazing piece there, and I just asked my friend, "What time is it?" He's like 4:53, and that was my first band name. I was like, "This is when you kind of finish playing a song, and there's like this almost deafness to where I don't care what anybody thinks anymore." And I remember like when I would come off stage and play music, it was kind of like I felt the same feeling where people would say, "Hey, great job," but I was too much in my, like, I was able to vent, that it's almost like I didn't care about anybody's feedback anymore. I don't know if you ever get that after you play music, where it's almost like it doesn't really matter what happens tonight after I play, because I'm just in a good place where I was able to emote in a way. Do you feel that way, or is there another reason why you chose to kind of, that route to emote?
I don't really know how to. I don't think I can express that feeling that you're talking about after you get off stage after a show. But I know what you're talking about. I know what that is. But yeah, I think it has a lot. I guess I'll search for the answer by saying that it definitely has a lot to do with emotion. You're spending however long, an hour or whatever the show is, kind of like belting so much out that it's like emotionally exhausting, that I don't know. And then it's like almost like it seems like you're like working on, I don't know. It's just like, it's definitely can be it's a weird, different energy,
Right.
But it's good. I mean, it's mostly, for the most part, I think it feels pretty positive.
Yeah, I think so too. I want to go to that. One of my favorite song that I think you ever wrote was "Art Is Hard," because I remember that I wrote here some notes that it kind of like behooves, I think, a musician to go high and low to receive. I mean, at least in my opinion, like some inspiration. I feel like the middle ground is kind of like, I think there's nothing to write about. That's my opinion, but like in the mid, when you're just kind of like even keel emotionally, I feel like there's not much substance to pull from. But when you're like way up high or way down low, there's just something like it kind of starts surrounding you where you're just like, okay, now I just need to like write things. Do you like kind of, because I know like you write songs and sometimes it's just kind of, there's some anger behind it, but do you ever kind of look back and be like, what was I going through to like write with that type of intensity? And like, am I over it, or am I like, or is it weird to play old songs that like I felt that way at that time? Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, I guess I don't. Yeah, I don't. I should explain maybe that all of these songs I kind of carry with me I kind of mean that like in like a really like pragmatic kind of sense, that this is still the career that I've been working on, that I've kind of like, that I've carried with me for the last 25 years. So even songs that I wrote 20 years ago, they're still kind of part of what I'm currently doing.
Right.
If that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still, if I would have left music a decade ago and then dove headfirst into real estate, and that's been my last 10 years, then I think music would start, all that music would start feeling a lot more distant.
Sure.
But the thing is that I'm still working. I mean, like I said today, I'm like going over through 4 tracks of the things of the last, like
Yeah.
it's just all kind of like, so I carry all of it with me. And that's a long way of saying that I don't feel that far away from the emotions and the understandings that I had when I was writing these things, even things that were 20 years ago, which is kind of wild because I do think, that was a long time ago. I mean, I definitely could look back, and in a lot of ways I see what a different person I was back then. But yeah, I don't know. Musically, it's still, I still have like a pretty, I still feel pretty tethered to all that.
So you mean like there's basically, you're saying there's current relevance to all the things that you said 20 years ago. It's still like kind of like a book you can pull out that is recent. Like the leaves are still kind of fresh still.
Yeah. Like I'm very well familiar with it, and maybe it's because I carried the songs with me for so many years, and so there's songs that are about totally different times in my life, but I still understand what those songs are about, and I don't necessarily have those feelings, but I know what those feelings are while I'm expressing them, while I play them live. I will say that that these songs, especially if they are 20 years old, I think that while still understanding what the initial message and maybe emotions were behind it, I'll play them this year, and they'll mean something. They can potentially mean something totally different for me, relative to what this year is like, to what's going on this year. And isn't that just me experiencing the song the way anyone's experiencing it, kind of,
Yeah.
like, which is interesting, because then that means that's like you take a songwriter, then you add 20 years, and it's almost like you can become you're like ingesting, or you're digesting your own song in a different way.
Yeah.
So many years later, because you are a different person.
Yeah, they say the same thing with a book, that years later when you read it, it's you read it differently, but it's because you've become a different person the second time you've read it, or the third time you've read it. So kind of similar to that, right?
Yeah, or think about movies you loved when you were even at a reasonable age of like 20 or something like that.
Right.
I know that there were movies I thought were outstanding when I was 20, and I take film pretty seriously. Like I think about it a lot. I watch a lot of films, but there's stuff I thought was super cool when I was 20 that I look back now and I'm just like, man, that's so
What
goofy.
was that? And who did I watch this with? Who tolerated this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you. That's one of my favorite songs. You got to sink to swim. Yeah, it's some good stuff right there. So just kind of a really like kind of off the top question is like, for example, with the work that I do, I'm like in energy medicine and things like that. But it's really interesting. Kind of, I know one of your songs you're talking about, like, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it's like those drunken, angry slurs. I'm trying to remember what song that was. You probably know which one it is.
I mean, it sounds like that's Artist Heart again, isn't it?
Oh, it might be. Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting though is that, in my work that I do, like our organs produce like certain emotions. Like for example, like the liver produces anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment, depression, frustration, indecisiveness. So it's kind of like when people clients that I know that drink too much alcohol, they drink caffeine, and their liver's working really hard, it's kind of fatty, they tend to express those emotions a lot more readily, So I was just interesting, like I think there were maybe 2 times in the album where there's just kind of like, you mentioned drunken, angry slurs, or you mentioned something about drunken thing. And I'm just wondering, like, when you were going into the music scene, did you notice that did you hang around people that just drank a lot, or did you just kind of like, or did you have a phase where you're just like, sometimes I just need to drink and like, because I know it's like the music scene is so interesting nowadays. It's kind of like, in order to keep going, kind of like Elvis, like he just kind of had to take things to kind of continue and stuff. Do you feel like that's still going on in the rock industry? Kind of like, and do you kind of like go like, oh, like, okay, I don't need that. I'm just going, I mean, like, where are you at with that? Like, is that something that you participate in, or just kind of like, nah, I'm not really into that?
Well, first off, I imagine that it's still very tied into the music industry because it always has been. You
Right.
know, I mean, it's just like alcohol and drugs and rock and roll are just like all just kind of like they're all just
A part of it.
yeah, in a major way, it seems like. But I do kind of wonder if that's waning maybe a little bit just in this just because isn't there some truth to that there's that the next new generations of youth still are getting very messed up, but maybe not as much. Is that possible?
I'm hoping that's the case.
But yeah, for us growing up, and I mean through the aughts, and through this music career, I mean, Cursive was like total lushes. Like we definitely have had a reputation of being like a heavy drinking band. But yeah, I mean, having gotten older, I've just kind of like learned how to curb that, and for a lot, kind of just for being older, like kind of for health reasons. You mentioned caffeine as well. Like I stopped drinking caffeine last fall, and it's been great.
Oh, congratulations!
Kind of just didn't need caffeine, and it was messing with my gut quite a bit. But alcohol does too. So I drink alcohol far more moderately now. But yeah, like we definitely went at it pretty heavily for a lot of years.
Yeah, I was just wondering why I was like kind of mentioned in there, and I was like, I wonder if like he was, if it was like around your environment, because I feel like there's just certain bands that were like I said, they kind of, there's always the overindulger in it, and it's kind of like, I was kind of sad about the Foo Fighters drummer that recently passed away, and it's like you just never know. When everyone's kind of enjoying themselves and having fun, there's really no limit to where you just say, "Hey, man, you got to cut it off." You kind of become the party pooper in there. So everyone's just trying to just enjoy themselves, but then you don't want to like die. You like that's kind of like no one ever thinks that's going to happen.
No, right.
So, but yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. And then for me, I feel like The Recluse is one of the most pure-hearted songs I've ever heard. Like I just watched a YouTube video, and there was a guy who just did the bass line, and he was just like, "I'm just going to play the bass line of this song," and I just remember, and so it really stood out, and I was just like, "That is the most beautiful bass line I've ever heard," and because it was so in the forefront, I was like, I don't know if like he what he was taking that day, or if he was listening to Jimi Hendrix that day. I have no idea, but yeah, I just one of the things that when I see an album, and I don't know if you think of it this way, is that your album, that specific album, looks like every song was just it hits. Like I hate the albums where it's like 2 or 3 songs, and they know that the rest is filler. And they're just like, and you're just like, I have to skip to track 4 and then track 7. It's just like, why do I have to skip tracks? And if you have a record player, you have to like pick up your darn thing. So, but I just noticed for me, from front to beginning, I was like, every song is very powerful. It means something, and it fits. Even when you did track 13, I think it was like the last track of The Ugly Organ. You did like kind of a revamp of track 8, like you did this like what's that? You know what I'm talking about, right? It's like right at the end. There's the vocals there, and I was just like, he brought it back. I'm like, that's really cool. I don't know if anyone's like caring that he did that, but that's really cool that he brought it back that way. But I was gonna tell you, like, for me, The Recluse is kind of like when you're doing a TV and you're trying to like fix the antennas a little bit, and there's like static on it. It's kind of like once you get this perfect antenna spot, like it's just this clean transmission. For me, The Recluse is like the cleanest, purest transmission that just kind of thing. But what does that song mean to you now? Has it changed the meaning at all for that song, or have you like whenever you revisit it? I've noticed you play slower versions of it sometimes, and and it's kind of a cool, really loungy sound. But like, does it have that same meaning? Because I mean, like the cello is so, and the bass is so like in your face. It's like, I'm just curious, like what do you think about that song nowadays?
It's the Reckless has been a funny one for us because I think we consider ourselves to be a pretty first and foremost kind of like an aggressive kind of questioning band, and the Recluse was like a real outlier for us. But but it was a nice song, and it was, I mean, we put it on the record, but it never, you talked about Artist Heart, and that was a song that I specifically was like, felt like, oh man, this is really going to be, this song's really going to, is really going to hit, like people are going to like this a lot. And I just kind of had a good feeling about that song. The Reckless was just like another song on the record though. And the Reckless is like far and beyond like our most successful song. We spent years not playing it live, just because it didn't seem like a strong live song to us. And now we play it, I think, almost every show, because I think just because the internet has helped give us enough statistics, I guess, to show that Recluse is like far and beyond like our most well-known song. So we're like, oh yeah, well that's cool. Like, like it's, I mean, we like the song. It's just surprising to us that that's the song that takes off. But no, sometimes I guess like it's a really, for us anyway, it's like a really pretty straightforward song. It's just kind of 4 chords repeated, and that's like we rarely do anything like that, but that's also kind of like a real testament, right, to like like 3 chords and the truth and like that kind of attitude. It's just you don't really need much to make a song work.
Right. Yeah, I personally feel like I want to like knock on K-Rock's door and just be like, you guys aren't playing enough Cursive, like you guys, but I know you're from Omaha, Nebraska. Tell me like the highlight of that place, like because I was just talking to Mallory before this, and I was just like when you go there, it's like, what's the cool thing to do, or is that a place that you want to escape from? Like what is that for you? Like when you think of that place, what 3 things come to mind that you're like, this is a great place for this, and awesome place for this? And do you have that for that place?
Well, it's kind of just to go back just a tiny bit. I was going to say that it's kind of both. For me, my experience with it, it's kind of both a place that you want to escape, but also a great place. And what I mean by that is that growing up, Omaha has just changed a lot. It's gotten a lot. I guess like not like significantly larger, but it's like, it's been growing. It's a growing city. But for us growing up, I very much felt that kind of sheltered, middle of nowhere vibe of Omaha, and felt the need to leave. Omaha's done a great job over the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years of, finally taking, I'm going to say finally, because I feel like growing up, it just was so conservative and didn't really, it just really wasn't growing, and people are always leaving. And that's the problem for a city.
Right.
But I think that over the last 20 years, it really kind of started like kind of getting its together and becoming like, it's just such a really pretty part of the country. And I think that like some people might scoff at that, but just maybe you haven't really been to Omaha. People always say like, oh, I've driven through there, because they take I-80, but it's hilly. It's actually hilly. It has the hills and it has tons of trees. It's a really green place. So yeah, it's a nice place, and everybody stays now. Maybe I can't say everybody, but it's like, I have such a large friend group there, because everybody stuck around there, and it's a bunch of great people. And it's like, I don't know, it's the type of city that loves food, kind of like Chicago does.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of a Midwestern thing, but so there's some great restaurants there.
Deep dish pizza or no dish pizza?
No, they don't get into that. they don't get into that.
That is a Chicago thing, right? Or
yeah. Chicago's got all kinds of things, man. They're food crazy.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'd say more than anything, it's just the people are exceptional in Omaha.
I'm glad it's finally growing. Like, I always find it still kind of weird, in my opinion, to go back to where I grew up. And I grew up in a place called Palos Verdes, and so it's kind of like a bubble up there, and it's so crazy how like just 15 minutes south, the whole economic look is different. And then 15 minutes more south, it's crazy how just 30 minutes away from like an area, it can just change so drastically, but sometimes when you go back, you're just like, wow, this place is really beautiful. I was a spoiled, angry kid that with teenage angst and listening to Rage Against the Machine that I couldn't appreciate this place, so but yeah, it's always good to come back. But let's talk about your new album, because I know it's called Middling Age, and I was born in 81, so I don't know what middling age is. It's like what, 50? Is it 50? Am I is that what it is? Like what is that? Why'd you make it that title? I'm kind of curious, like why did you put that in the forefront?
Well, I think middle age is, sadly for you, I think it's 40. Probably.
Oh, it's 40. Okay, so I've hit it. Like my birthday's this month, so I'm gonna be 41. So I'm passing the middling age. Sweet.
Yeah. But I just I came up with, I just had a ton of different names for this album, and ended up landing on middling age because I just thought it was kind of a fun play on the term middle-aged. That is what it can feel like, is like a fairly middling existence when you when you maybe hit I think for a lot of us human beings, you can kind of feel like you like plateau, and that can feel middling,
right.
As in like marginal. So that's just it. I kind of just like a mildly funny way of expressing that it's an album about being middle-aged, but also feeling like it's like that it can be a middling static kind of experience for us.
So it's almost like you're kind of, because is the middling age beyond midlife crisis, or are they kind of hanging out right next to each other? I
think they're the same. They're not the same thing, but they're definitely right next to each other.
They're definitely right next to each other. Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's a midlife crisis is what you have when you hit middle age.
Middle age, right?
Yeah. Okay, or if you do, or you don't. Right. I don't know if I'll ever have a midlife crisis, because there's so much arrested development to being in music that it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Despite writing a record called Middling Age, it's like I do that because it is because I'm in my 40s, but
we live in a completely different generation where, you go on SoundCloud and put something on there and then people are watching your music. Before, it was almost like everything was like, I need to get a label, it's like, I think there's so many ways to transmute your music now that it's just like, which is a good thing and a bad thing in some ways, but like, some people maybe shouldn't be doing that, but I'm just saying, like, it's kind of cool that there's so much platforms to release your stuff, and you don't need someone to tell you, hey, you're good and let me sign you. I think that's kind of
yeah. I've always felt really positive about that. This was, I feel like questions about this would come up a lot in the early aughts, because there's a lot of, it was like the internet was newer in the, and it's in music, online was a newer concept. And I've always said that's a positive thing. And that also, because mostly, well, not mostly, but just like the adage that cream rises to the top, so I think it's great that the thing is, say SoundCloud as an example, it's still close to impossible to become successful on SoundCloud, but you can, and it's great. That's great. That's like, that's so cool. I think it's great to have, it's great that people can put stuff out on SoundCloud and feel like, who knows? I don't know. Maybe it'll take off. Maybe it'll, maybe it'll resonate with a lot of people. And, some people think labels are kind of becoming obsolete or unnecessary, but I disagree with that as well, because labels still are tastemakers in a major way, and that whatever artist that managed to get big on SoundCloud, awesome. I'm so happy for them. But also, if they had they been discovered by a prominent label, they would have found this. They would have found
Had
their
similar success
that way.
that way. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I mean, I remember one of my favorite singers is Mike Patton from Faith No More.
Yeah,
And
great.
yeah, and so I followed him with Phantomus, Tomahawk, and all the different
Yeah.
projects he has. And he's just a very versatile singer, and I remember when he started Ipecac, and that's his label, and he's just bringing in different bands. And it's kind of like, I love it when someone gets like, he's like, okay, I've had my success. How can I give back to people, And I feel like you recently are, I think, is there, I think there's a label that you're working on right now, right? You're trying to like also invite other bands to come in, or am I totally wrong with that? Like, I feel like.
Yeah. Cursive has a label called 15 Passenger.
That's what it is, 15 Passenger.
And it's essentially a label for us to put our back catalog on. And also we're releasing new albums on. And the Middling Age came out on it as well. We have dabbled a little bit with releasing other artists, kind of just because it's our love of music and our love of the music community, and kind of wanting to give back in ways. And we would like to continue doing it. We're having a little hard time with the bandwidth, as far as all of us personally having the time to get that, to keep that going, but also just financially it's hard. It's what a tough industry, right? To put stuff out, to put music out where music doesn't really cost anything. It's like it's basically free now. So it's kind of hard to find the revenue streams for that. You have to get successful. You need the bands to get terribly successful, basically on via streaming, in order to manage to find a return on investment on that. So, we try to spend very little and hope for the best.
Yeah, I that was part of one of my homework at Musicians Institute. They said I need to go work at an independent label for a little bit. And I was just like kind of putting CDs together and everything. And I was just kind of appreciating it, like the little people here. And I remember I was like, Avenged Sevenfold was one of the albums, and he came from a little label, and then later on I think got signed to like Island or whatever. But I'm just like, it was kind of cool to see like, hey, this little person here. And then you never know kind of what happens in the future. Like you said, the cream goes to the top, and good music is good music, and so, so yeah. So are you going on tour with your album? Like what's going on? Like how can people like find you? Like, cause I know everybody wants to get out of their house cause we're just tired of wearing masks, and so, we just want to see like Tim Kasher rocking out now. So where can they find you at? Like what's going on?
Unfortunately, as of this conversation, there are multiple, dates being lined up, but I don't have anything concrete yet. So there's not really a tour to speak of at the moment. I will offer that Cursive is going to be out in the fall a couple times. So far a couple times. We're doing Cursive's playing Furnace Fest in Birmingham, Alabama, I think it is, with a pretty cool lineup that including Sunny Day Real Estate, I remember. And then also playing the fest in Gainesville around the end of October, Gainesville, Florida.
I noticed that no bands ever come to Utah. Like all my favorite bands, they just never. So I'm like, okay, so I have to like go east or go west, but no one stops here. Why not? Like,
yeah, I actually quite like playing SLC. Excuse me. I play SLC just about every time I tour the West Coast.
Okay, yeah, because I know, like I went to Love Loud with my wife, and they Imagine Dragons was there, and that was a great venue there, and yeah, SLC will welcome you with like open arms, so yeah. Yeah, I was like, but I just feel like it's like everyone's going to the east or the west, and I'm just like, but yeah, if you take Salt Lake City, my wife and I will make a drive down there. So cool. let me just I just have like just maybe 2 or 3 more questions. I know you're a busy guy, but there's I once heard in an interview. Oh yeah, I once heard in an interview that you were saying that you're like, somebody says, do you fully disclose all your like what you really want to say sometimes? And I think like there were 2 or 3 interviews where you said, to an extent, and you kind of brought up your mom twice, like kind of like I don't want to like step on anybody's toes, and I always was wondering is like, what if your mom just kind of had earmuffs and for just like an hour, what would you is there anything that you'd specifically be like, I'd go way more down this road if I could? Have you ever thought about that at all? You probably thought about that, like kind of like, what would it be if there was no like mom listening and just like I can just say whatever I want to say? Is it the same theme or is it different?
I would say that I'm always trying to push myself to write that way anyway. So I don't think I'm too far off, but I think that I could always use work on it. I like this question because the way I see it becoming a really slippery slope is when a writer can kind of go from being decent to being an asshole.
Right.
And I actually do kind of push myself to be like, well, if it's a matter of writing something that's like pure or real or universal, and it means that you're kind of being an asshole to a particular person or community or what have you, I'll still debate it. I'll still like consider it, I should say, and kind of weigh out like what the benefits are. I do think that writers need to I think to really write, you need to kind of block everything out, and then depend and trust on your personal community to not give you like a flack for it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a like a great relationship with a lot, with like my wife and with a lot of my closest friends and my bandmates, that there's not any like need or insistence to discuss lyrics and stuff that if it feels inappropriate or if it seems kind of like to maybe make more of a concrete example, kind of like the, hey, is that about me? Or like that kind of a thing. It's just like, it's just not good for writers to have to like be held to task,
right.
Taken to task for what they're writing about, or to be held responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So probably what I think, that go back to the articles you were reading, I have always maintained that what I write is both a autobiographical and fiction,
right?
And you might not know which is which, and I'm not like held accountable for having to tell people which is which, and that's kind of the veil that I need to hide behind in order to try to write as honestly as possible. And I think that's how most writers, I'm assuming, are.
But that last song was written about me, though, for sure, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The last one was good.
The one that was like, you're just being really harsh there. I was like, that song's got to be about me. Okay, so now here we go with the flash questions. This is just going to be back to back, and then we're going to end our little interview here. And I'm just so grateful for you taking some time. And like I said, I love, like I said, I loved all the interviews that were out there, but it just seemed like I felt like since the beginning of your work, I just feel like, does anyone really understand like how like thoughtful his lyrics are? And have you dissected it recently? And I can always appreciate a lyricist, but interviewer, they have to do their job, but they're not going to go to the extent of like, I've been passionately enjoying your lyrics that I want to dissect it. That doesn't mean that they're not held to do that, but I wanted to do that. I was like, you know what, this album, there's some great lyrics in here. Like you can just take 2 lines and just kind of sit there and look at it and be like, that has a lot of meaning in multiple ways, and you can kind of extract it. So, okay, so flash questions. Here we go. So you can only think for about 2 seconds. Okay. So 80s or 90s?
For me, 80s.
Okay, Hendrix or David Gilmour?
Oh, Gilmour.
Nice. Okay, so who would win in a fight? Tim Kasher 2022 or Tim Kasher 2002?
Oh, geez, probably 2002, sadly.
I was like, what's the most random question I can ask? Okay, so hippie or alien?
Did you say hippie or alien?
Yeah.
I guess I'll go alien on that.
I don't know. I like aliens too. So psychic abilities or walk through walls, and why?
This is great. I think I'd easily go psychic abilities. It's far more interesting. And Yeah, like there's like that's just I mean, walking through walls is like you could be kind of just a moron who can walk through walls. But psychic abilities is like, gosh, that really puts you on a whole other level of
But I think maybe to get the choice to turn
powers.
it on or turn it off, because then, you know, you don't want to be, so what do you guys think about the music? And then you're like, okay, turn it off. Like, I don't want to hear everyone's real thoughts, you know, on this.
Oh,
you know?
right. Yeah. No,
But
I
so yeah, we should have the ability to turn it on, turn it off. I think it's fair. Play music or work at a corporate job where you listen to your own music like Dorothy at 40 does.
I will definitely play my own music. I mean, that's crazy talk. That's a crazy question.
Okay, so last question: what rocks harder, the martyr or the gentleman caller?
Wow, good question. Well, I probably have. Well, they rock in different ways, but I think I'll have to go with the martyr.
Yeah, martyr's a good one. It's pretty hard hitting there. So, yeah, Tim, I just thanks for all you do for pouring out music out there for everyone. And like I said, if anyone who's listening here, I know you also have kind of a cool thing. You have a kind of like a VIP Patreon out there. So if anyone has Patreon in there, you can go in there and you can get kind of like almost the inside of, like, I guess you're playing acoustic songs from time to time. What are you doing over there too?
Yeah, it's called Tim Kasher's Home Phone, and I mean, it's just been a lot of fun. It's something I considered doing it for a handful of years, and just started doing it last year, and I'm just starting my second year now, and it's a lot of it's a mix of older stuff, kind of like from the vault, as people like to say. Finding even just like that's kind of part of what I'm doing actually right now, is like going through all these 4-tracks and finding stuff that I can put up on that Patreon page. But it's also new songs I've written, and songs that don't like, you know, Cursive and Good Life songs that don't make it to albums and don't make it to like proper B-sides. There's just so much stuff that I write into. So it's just for me, it's just been so much fun to have and yet another outlet, as if I needed one, but to have yet another outlet that I can kind of like put these songs in front of people, and it just I don't know, it's so much nicer than like having songs sit on a shelf.
Yeah, and it's cool. I guess I don't know if you'd call them C-sides, but yeah, it's just basically like exclusive stuff that you can't get anywhere else. And so if you're a Tim Kasher fan, you should be checking out his Patreon and things like that. And then I'm going to hold you to the SLC show, because then we'll drive 5 hours to go there. And yeah, is there anything else you want to kind of share, just that about what you're doing, just so that people can, you know, get a hold of you? Or I guess what the big thing is, where can we see once there's upcoming tour comes up? I guess there's a Cursive website that people can go to, and we'll put it down in the about section for you. But
yeah, I think it's called, I know I'm probably seeming coy here, but I think it's called cursivearmy.com. And there's timkasher.com. I'm going to just check on that, Cursive Army. I think that's what it's called. I don't go there often since I live it. Yeah, that's it.
Cursive Army, because cursivearmy.com, timkasher.com.
Yep.
Okay, great. So,
and we try to keep those updated. Actually, probably the most updated things are probably just Instagram and Facebook, which is, you know, Tim Kasher and
then Cursive the band
Cursive
on Instagram.
The band, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And yeah, so just excited for this new album, and I keep listening to it. And again, I'm going to make a ringer out of that first or the second song of that album. So that's my goal in life. So, but yeah, appreciate you being on here, and look forward to all your success.
I appreciate it so much. Thanks a lot.